I now invite Mr. Rahul Sreenivasan, Solution Sales Specialist, Red Hat, India and South Asia, onto the stage. Sir is our gold sponsor of Red Hat. Over to you, sir.
I'm in Kerala, I'm Kozhikode in Ore, Calicatian, right? So let's start with Malayalam, if that's okay, right? Um, have you ever heard about a poem or a poet called as Narayana Panikar? ആലായാൽ തറ വേണം അടുത്തൊരമ്പലം വേണം ആലിനു ചേർന്നൊരു കുളവും വേണം, which basically means banyan tree needs a temple, and next to the temple there should be a pond, right? When I heard this for the first time, I basically thought about dependencies in Linux, right? Because basically if you install an RPM, you basically need to manage a bunch of dependencies, and that's how I started my Linux journey when I was in college. And that was Red Hat Linux at that point of time, and it was only called as Linux. Now, what I do today is I look at a platform called as Ansible or automation for the SARC region across Red Hat. And I'm not sure if you guys know Red Hat. I'm not sure which you guys don't know about Red Hat, right? Red Hat is one of the large contributors to open source, right? We talk about 1 million plus projects constantly curated, delivered by Red Hat to open source community. When we talk about Red Hat, it's synonymous with the word called as Linux. And I think all your open source journey started with Linux, right? And if you look at how the world has changed from when Bob Young started Linux and now how Red Hat is, it's tremendous, right? Over in last 20 years, we have grown multifold. We have got 20,000 employees in Red Hat. We are present in all, all the countries. We have a very thriving presence in India. If you book a ticket today in a flight, runs on Red Hat Linux or on OpenShift. If you transact through GSTN, it basically runs out on OpenShift. If you look at largest number of bank transactions, reconciliation SDFC does today in the backend, Ansible does that for them, right? So Red Hat is everywhere and or probably omnipresent in terms of open source. Could you shift to next? Can I? Okay, excellent. Now, when we talk about Red Hat and open source, what we do separately, right? Why do we stand out? Yes, we create millions of projects, but we also contribute back to the open source. How? We basically pick up the projects, have an opinionated judgment and direction towards that project, right? So community might want to use a particular project in one direction or want to steer it in one direction, which might not be okay for enterprises. So we pick up the good parts of that community projects, build enterprise-grade products. What we work together as community is projects. What Red Hat gives out to enterprise, what enterprise needs is a supported product. Now, then the monetization comes into picture, right? Everybody talks about, hey, making money. No, it's also building that project as a product internally and also giving the code back to community, right? So that's the whole point or ethos of how Red Hat sustains open source development and becomes billion-dollar company, right? So if you look at changes in upstream, that upstream projects are looked upon. Specific parts of that upstream development is brought in as enterprise features to enterprise products from Red Hat. Now, and we talked about contribution back, right? So what are we looking at as project? So if you look at the slide here, Red Hat touches everything in open source, whether you call it Backstage, whether you call it Ansible, whether you call it, for identity management, whether you call it Rook, whether you call it Ceph, whether you call it OCP, all of this are projects which basically gets curated by Red Hat. We have developers who actually look at projects, contribute back to those projects, pick up specific features, build on top of that specific features, develop features and deliver it with a sustainable code, right? Which basically has a roadmap, has a feature roadmap for customers so that customer basically looks at a predictive future. Now, we all work for customers. We all have a bot basically talks to us about how it should be, right? And that's exactly what Red Hat delivers to our customers because they would want stability. You guys are talking about generating code on an hourly basis, and an enterprise customer cannot keep up the pace with kind of code changes. So that code has to be taken in, has to be looked upon, has to be curated, has to have a documentation to it, has to be tested, it has to go through a complete agile process of software development lifecycle, and then delivered a stable product to an end customer. That's exactly what Red Hat does. Now, when we do that, how does open source community take advantage of it, right? When we develop that, we basically put the product or projects which you contribute to test, right? We have paid testers who looks at it, understand what works, what doesn't. That comes back into your open source community as functional upstream, contributes from Red Hat, makes us the second largest contributor to Kubernetes, right? So that's pretty much Red Hat is all about. Now, how have we been recognized? Ansible, the platform which I look at, has been always at the top in terms of automation, right? And I literally looked at, I have never worked in automation before. I have never looked at what automation is, even though I have worked in Edge. When I got into, and I'm an ex-VMware guy, right? So vSphere is one product which I've seen very strong, extremely strong. And then now I see Ansible being that robust. It can scale, every possible use case. You want to manage Cisco switches and routers. You want to create a CI/CD pipeline. You want to check in code, check out code. You basically want to create servers on the fly. You want to create VMs. Ansible is the answer in terms of automation, right? And then we are the second largest contributor to Kubernetes, right? And we came in recognized from Forrester as one of the leading Kubernetes provider, distribution provider. Why? Because we basically pick and choose what exactly works in community, what basically customers demand, bring it as a product. So that's pretty Red Hat and open source. I see that this event has brought in a lot of people, and I never thought there is such a technical community, and I'm humbled by humble, to be really frank, to stand here and talk. Thanks you for the honors of me being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation. I request sir to be on the stage and accept the gift as a token of love and appreciation from Mr.